And we're live with the Harrowings and live from the bunker and the Museum of Early American Tools by Eric Sloan. We started reading this book yesterday. And, among other things, it is about making your own stuff, but the other level of that, making your own tools to make your own stuff. And this book gives detailed design information and fine illustrations of Americans' pre industrial tools, plus how to use them. So, it was written by Eric Sloan in 1964, republished in 1973 in this form, and my father bought it that year. Probably, it got a hold of it probably from doing research that was relevant to Eric Sloan's work, potentially, because he certainly had started that in 1961 and was continuing it when Sloan published the 64 edition and then the 73 edition. 73, he was publishing his own book on colonial Virginia. And in that, there's quite a bit about tool use to do agriculture in particular, which is what the Virginia economy is based on. Now, last time we read the first chapter, The Romance of Tools. Now we're going to read Crude Shop's Magnificent Results. And we've got some illustrations, a photograph of the interior of an old shop. And it's lathe you see there in the front, a great wheel lathe. And then here's a shot of an exterior sketch and including a carpenter's bench and the details there of how that is set up. So with that, we got Pam Arland here, so welcome. We're going to be reading Crude Shop's Magnificent Results. After the Civil War, factory-made things became popular, and the tool house was limited to such minor work as farm repairs. The Dominy shop, shown below, was used by Nathaniel Dominy IV, 1737 to 1812, and his son, Nathaniel V, from 1770 to 1852 was his lifespan. This entire shop, including manuscript accounts, covering the period between 1762 and 1829, has been kept intact at the Henry Francis DuPont Miniature Museum in Delaware. The visitor's first reaction is usually, what a primitive shop. Yet the magnificent table standing in the center of the room was made in it. And there you go. Here's a look at that. You see that table sitting in the middle of this primitive shop. Okay, so turn the page, and we're into a new chapter, actually. An axe is an axe. And here we have, again, illustrations of axes, very straight-handled things compared to modern axes, which have more curvature and fancier ends. And there you go. There's the different types detailed there, German, British, and Anglo-American from about 1715. The first hint of a pole is there. There's no pole on the German or British axes. So, no matter how you spell it, both ways are accurate, AX or AXE. It is natural to start off a sketchbook of early American implements with this tool. America was a new world of unending wood where a man armed with only a felling axe could enter the forest and survive. With his axe, he could clear the land of trees, cut fuel, build a bridge, a house, and furniture. With his axe, he could fashion snares for game and, in a pinch, use it to protect himself against marauding Indians or wild beasts. No wonder the first settlers carried axes in their belts and treated them with a respect like that of a soldier toward his sword or sidearms. As was true of all first American artifacts, our earliest axes were like those from abroad. They had well-curved, gracefully fashioned blades, and they lacked the bulky poles, which, as those that identify the pure American design. The heavy pole appears to be for hammering. Indeed, it could be used for such. Yet it was devised to serve as a weight to give more momentum to chopping. Few early Polish axes have survived except those traded with the Indians, called trade axes. So, We have a world of axes on the next pages, and you'll see many different illustrations here of the different types. So, America's wealth of wood and her pride in carpenter craftsmanship resulted in an amazing array of specialty tools. Early catalogs listed more than 50 patterns of axe heads alone, all doing the same job yet differing in design. Farmers and blacksmiths fashioned their own axes for framing and for mortising the beams of barns, as shown below, or for felling trees, which are shown in the opposite. So again, taking a look at those different ideas. Down here you have the mortising axe, and there you have some other felling axes and their designs. So, turning the page, the broad axe. The broad axe, a most essential American tool, was the chisel-shaped broad axe. Thousands of them are still around, but people seeing the broad axe often take it for a very big and clumsy felling axe. Because few museums bother to include the tool or to explain its use, few people really know how it was used. Actually, it was a kind of plain or striking chisel that early Americans used for hewing round logs into square beams. More than twice the size of a felling axe, this tool had a short, bent handle protruding outward from the side of the axe head with the bevel, basil, or chisel slant on the same side. Two hands were used. The process was called squaring or hewing. The American-style broad axe had a fair-sized squarish head or pole, as the other American-style axes did. European types had none. Although hand-hewn timbers and old buildings are commonly called adzed beams, they were usually broad-axed. Although some odd people hack up beams to make them appear hand-done, the most expert broad axemen cut the fewest axe marks, and those that were left were spaced nicely, never haphazardly. And you can see there the never haphazard marks of the axe, and there's more information about how it was done. So you can see the bevel being on one side and away from the cutter, and there's some other designs, features. So that's probably a pretty good stint for today. We had Linda join and Pam Arlen. Thank you for joining us. I'm doing these impromptu readings from the Museum of Early American Tools by Eric Sloan, just because I want to. And I like to preserve this, but also because we've got new tools, right? We're all using tools all the time, and we use tools to make stuff. And indeed, the creative works being created today, many people are leveraging the power of large language models, another type of tool. So we'll be talking more about that in the context of preserving historic trades, which is also a big part of the Hal Gill Foundation's heritage. I've worked in historic trades, and I've worked in conservation in the past. And I was just musing about that the other day with one of my colleagues on this Harrowings podcast. We had the Everyday Junglist on, Dan the microbiologist, and we were talking about phages and tool use there, and on it goes. Okay, so I'm having a slight avalanche of books happening here. Get the balance right, and hopefully they won't fall over. That's all I got for today. Thanks for joining if you have, and hopefully you've been watching. And give me some comments, give me some feedback. Always love that. End here.